did my Savior bleed? And did my sovereign die? Would he devote?
Okay, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but your intro has your great nephew and great niece singing a gospel song.
Yeah?
So eventually you'll be able to hear it. You can't hear it now. You can't hear it now, can you?
No.
Okay, we're going to tape Lee Ray Ramage and Ruth Ramage today. As you can see, I'm without notes, and I usually have notes, some notes that I make for myself to prompt me to ask certain questions, but it's a wing it day, so no problem. So to get underway here and to get started, Uncle Lee Ray, you tell us your full name and your birthday, what year, and where you were born, all right?
My name is Lee Ray Ramage. I was born April the 24th, 1916 in Lyon County. Birthplace was Eddyville, the address.
Lyon County, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Okay, now Ruth, we want you to do the same thing. You tell us name, when, birthday, if you don't mind admitting it, and where you were.
I was born, I'm Ruth Elaine Ramage. I was born in Metropolis, Illinois. My birthday is February 14th, 1933.
Okay, that's good. And we're going to sort of follow through now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Uncle Lee Ray up to the time that you two met.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go back and bring you up to that time, okay? So you can relax, take a little nap or whatever you want to do for a few minutes, okay? Now, you were born in Lyon County.
Right.
And your father's name was St. Bailey.
Right.
And
Yeah.
your mother's name was what?
Addie Grace.
Addie Grace Stafford. Right, okay. And you were the, what, fifth or what in your family?
Fifth.
Fifth, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. And why don't you name them in the order 1 through Armenda? The names, just the
Yeah.
names, not the birthdays, just...
Just Garland is the oldest one.
Right.
Newman is next. Rob Roy is the next. I'm the next one. Then Charlene. Then Christine.
Right.
And Armenda.
Right, okay.
Do you want to get to the dead one? No, you don't.
You can comment on that because I'm not sure I have it on any of the other tapes.
There was one child that was born, died at birth. I don't know just exactly about her, whether she was before Christine or after her. But she's right, either just before Christine or just after Christine.
Still born?
Stillborn, yeah.
Well, okay. Okay, so you had lots of companions when you were growing up.
Yeah, plenty of them.
And you were very close to them,
Right.
Your brothers, sisters, and even uncles and aunts,
Right.
because some of them were very close to you in age.
Yeah, Debbie D. and Gola was on the farm next to us. I was raised between the rivers now. It's the land between the lakes now,
Right,
but it's the land between the rivers then.
right, right. Now, when you were growing up, your parents and all of your family was farming.
Right, right.
I presume that you learned how to work on the farm early.
Right, early, real early.
What was your first chores? What did you first have to do when you got a job when you were, say, 10 years old or whatever? Tell me about what you used to do when you were a little tyke on the farm, before you could really work, you know.
Charlene and me, we done the milking.
Oh,
We had to milk the cows and take care of them, bring the milk in and all. And then I had to get the wood for Mama to cook with and all that, you know.
wood stove.
Yeah, wood stove.
Right.
Kerosene lamps. We didn't have any electricity up in that land between the lakes at that time.
That's good. So you got a little older and then you went to the field, I presume.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd work in the field and then I'd come home and come to the house in time to get the cows in and milk them in the afternoon. We would,
Right.
Charlene and I.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
This was with mules or horses,
yeah,
I presume,
No
farming.
tractors. Mostly plows, no cultivators till almost time for us to leave the farm in Lyon County.
Well, now, did they raise corn and
Raised corn
wheat,
and
or
hay,
what did they?
hay. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, what did you do? Of course, you didn't work all day, every day, and on Sundays you were off. What
Oh.
did you do when you were a little kid, say 10 years or younger? What were your sports back
Well,
then?
we had our neighborhood children would get together and play marbles and play kick the can and hide and seek and things like that.
Okay,
And we'd go to church on Sunday nights. We didn't have any Wednesday night meetings. Well, they did, but we didn't go to them. We farmed. We just had about 5 miles to go to church.
I see. So on Sunday you'd get up and everybody would go in the
Everybody-
wagon, or how?
Yeah,
to,
in the wagon. We'd go to, and they'd have a protracted meeting during the summer. We'd have about a 2 weeks meeting, and we'd all attend that in the wagon.
I see.
Then as I got older, I finally got up around 14, 15, 16, where I began to ride the horse and go to church
I see.
on my own.
Right.
I had a good life. I've had a good life.
That's good. That's good that you can look back on it with satisfaction at that point. The store was close enough that you would often go to the store, or did you not often go to the store?
Well, we went to the store about once a week. We took off eggs. Mama raised hens and raised eggs, and that's the way we bought our sugar and coffee and stuff that we couldn't raise to eat.
I see. And where was town when you'd go to the store or the town? What was that?
Starline Works, there was a store there, land between the lakes, post office and store, and the voting precinct in the land between the lakes there.
Was that a large enough town you could say you'd gone to town, or did you ever
No,
go to
it
a
was
big
just-
town and there
no.
was some other place you'd go
Only
to town?
place we'd cross the river and go to Qatar or Eddyville
Okay,
when we went to town. We'd go to Grand Rivers. It's about 5 miles to Grand Rivers. There was a depot there. The trains, passenger trains were on there, and they had 4 or 5 each way a day and night. Passenger trains then.
so when you got into your teens, you still worked on the farm and
Right.
you helped out and did whatever.
Yeah, raised on the farm, worked on the farm until we moved out of Lyon County in 1934 and moved to McCracken County. And
Okay.
then that changed my life quite a bit.
Now, you would have been about,
17 years old.
Yeah, I started to say close to 20.
Yeah.
So had you any decision making in that regard? Were you consulted about, or you were told, we're leaving here, we're going to move? You weren't tempted to stay up there for any
No,
reason?
my dad came down here and made arrangements with the man that owned the farm for us to come here
Over
and
on
move
the
the farm and
Tennessee
start
River.
farming here over on the Tennessee River.
Right, right. Well, of course, all of this goes back to the fact that the Depression had come,
Right,
and
right.
things were very, very bad
Yeah.
economically, all over and up there too.
Yeah, I got a job on the river for $1 a day, decking, and was glad to get it.
That's
Yeah.
after you moved here.
After we
you
moved
came
here, yeah,
Right. $1 a day.
yeah.
What did you while you were up in younger, early teens, say, how did you have of making a little spending money? Did you have any special thing that you could do to make extra money from the neighbors? Or?
I mowed the yard for Lube Tyree, next farm to us.
I see.
And I'd push this one of these old reel type lawnmowers. There wasn't no motor to it. It was all manpower. Wasn't no horsepower to it. It was manpower. And I pushed them mowers for 10 hours a day for 75 cents. And I worked for Martin's Tobacco Factory for 12.5 cents an hour. 10 hours for $1.25. When I first got a job.
Well, actually, that wasn't bad money if you
Wasn't bad
think
money.
at
I
it,
could buy a shirt then for $1.50 and a pair of shoes
Right.
for $2 or $3.
Exactly. Well, Now, that would bring you into, by the time you came here, you were interested in the fair sex,
Yeah,
right? By the time you moved to Paducah.
yeah.
And so you started looking around for girls to,
Well, a little
to
bit,
date.
not too much.
Not too much?
Went to the movies mostly on Saturday when I had a chance.
Oh, okay. Well, eventually you met somebody, as
Yeah,
I
eventually.
recall, and so tell me how that happened, how that came about.
Well, I was working on the river at the time I met the woman that I married, the girl I married,
Yeah, and that was,
and that was Ernestine Roberts.
right,
And her mother was raised in Lyon County, and she had got down here at Paducah and married a man, and they lived over here close to us. She was working at a little restaurant down there by the tobacco factory, Ernestine was.
right.
And I come in off the river, and the first time I saw her was in there to think about dating or anything, you know.
Right.
I'd seen her just passing around about. And I got to talking to her there in the restaurant hamburger place, and got a date, and we started dating, and eventually we married.
Well,
Yeah.
now that being connected close to the tobacco warehouse, I guess you'd call it, did that have anything to do with you getting a job there in that eventually, or didn't you say you did work for the tobacco?
Oh yeah, I went to work there the first job I had, and
Oh, okay,
And,
before you went on the river, you'd
right,
gone
right
there.
before I
see.
went on the river.
I see, okay.
And old man Sandy Dossett was the boss there, and he hired me and Newman the same day. He didn't hire two out of the family, and he was going to let me go, and I wasn't going to get a job. And Tommy Roberts, Ernestine's daddy, he knew us, and he told Mr. Dossett, he said, Mr. Dossett said, Newman has got a family, he's got a wife and child. He said, Lee Ray hasn't got any children. Said he's not even married. Said they're a different family, the same names and all, but they're a different family. So he gave me a job, and he started then. He was going to give me and Newman $1.25 a day. And he wound up, he gave Newman $1.35 and left me at $1.25.
Oh,
Because Newman had a child, well, he gave him a dime more on the hour than he did me.
yeah. Well, the child was me. He was getting
You
an
was
extra
the guy.
dime
You
for
was
me.
a little guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I needed that.
I worked there that one winter at the tobacco factory, and then I went on the river
I see.
and worked there for 7 years.
Okay.
And after I got off the river, why I'd work there, come back and work there some more. I got married and got a child, and then I got off the river after when Sue was born. Well,
I
then
see.
I began to get off the river.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah. So, at what point was Wanda Sue born, and trace right on through all of your children then for me right now,
Well-
while we're on that subject.
Wanda Sue was born in 1941.
Okay,
Or 42 was Wanda Sue claims. And then 49, Danny was born 7 years later. And 56, I believe it was, 7 years later, Glenda was born, the third one.
right,
They was about 7, 8 years apart there. But I went in the service there, you see, while when Wanda Sue was born, and then I went in the service. I spent 4.5 years in the service.
right,
Came out, and then Danny was born.
right.
And then I got, Ernestine got in bad health. And,
Yes,
And it was a while before Glenda was born, and the doctor said that it wouldn't hurt her to have a child, and it might even help her with her health, but it didn't.
well. Now, to go back on that, were you drafted into service? Were you in what, the Navy?
I was in the Army. I
In
was
the Army?
drafted. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
drafted.
okay, and
Yeah.
that would have been during World War II,
World War
of course.
II, yeah. Uh-huh.
And you went in where and served where?
I went to Portland, Maine, and went on an Army mine planter and stayed 3.5 years there. Never did go out of the States.
I see.
I'd been working on the river, and they had built that Army mine planter up here at Port Pleasant, West Virginia, and brought it down the Ohio River to the Mississippi, and on down the Mississippi to the Gulf, and around the Gulf up to Portland, Maine, with a skeleton crew. And when they got there, well, they was getting a crew to mine the Portland Harbor. That is the closest point to Germany.
I see.
And they was mining the Portland Harbor.
I see.
Well, I'd had experience on the river and had experiences of cooking, so that got me right there. I wasn't in the Army but 3 days until I was on the mine planter,
Well,
getting ready to start cooking. And I stayed on there 3.5 years.
did you, yeah, you look at Don now. man.
Okay.
Did you actually put the mines out, or did they never get around to doing
Oh
that?
yeah, we laid mines
You
out
did.
for the most of the 3 years.
And what did you do then? You remembered where they were and went and got them later?
Yeah, well, mines was planted on the bottom out there,
I see.
and they had a hole in the hill that is camouflaged. They run run the lines with electricity out to a DB box, they called it, and they planted the mines in groups of 19, 150 yards apart.
Yeah.
And they sit right on the bottom, and they could set any one of them mines off
From
or the
the
whole
shore.
group at a time if a ship came in.
Right.
Never did have to use them, but they was there. And they had 7 ton of TNT in them, each mine did.
Yeah. You never saw one explode the whole time you were there?
We exploded one.
I see, just to see if it worked or
Just to
whatever.
see what
Yeah.
happened. They
Well,
tested them. They
Well.
didn't blow them up every time, but
Yeah.
they exploded too, actually. They was 150 yards apart, and there's been 150 from one to the other, and then another 150 to the other one. And they blowed up these 2 mines, and it caved that second one in. It didn't
Yeah.
have any
Well,
explosive in it. It just had the shell there to see
Right.
what happened. It just caved it in, and like you'd take a pop can and mash it in, empty with your hands.
yeah, I see. So you stayed there the whole time, and when the war ended, they let you go home?
Well,
Or
when the
was that
war ended
before?
with Germany, why we didn't
Yeah.
have any use
No
for the
reason
mines
for that,
there, so
right.
they took that ship and sent it to the west coast
I see.
and made a mine sweeper out of it
Right.
to get mines out. And brought a little mine sweeper there. They called it a junior to pick up the mines that we had out there, and they transferred me over there because they needed a cook, and the rest of the crew went out to California and went to different places from there.
Uh-huh. So you were a cook for
was a cook all
your
the time
actual
on-
duties?
Yeah, right.
Right,
Mhm.
well. And so when you got out, was the war over literally, or at least the general?
Yeah, it was over. It was over, but I didn't have enough points to get in, to get out. The ones that
Right
been
away,
overseas,
yeah.
they had extra
Right.
points.
Right,
And I had sea duty. I wore Navy clothes at work on the ship, but I didn't. When I went out in the public, well, I wore Army clothes. But when they took that big mine planter to the west coast and left that little one there, and they needed to cook on it, so they transferred me over there, and I stayed a while there, and we picked up those mines.
yeah,
And then I still couldn't get out. I didn't have enough time, and I volunteered for a year because I saw it was going to be a year before I could get out.
Yeah.
Well, I got a 90-day furlough, and got travel pay home, and all together, I just stayed, was just in there 9 months. You see,
Right.
of that year, I was 3 months at
Right.
home.
right,
So I got a pretty good break there.
well,
And then I went back. I went in the MP battalion at Fort Dix, New Jersey. I didn't go back cooking.
I
I
see.
was just first one place and another. Had a bunch of was a prison camp one. There was 3,000 prisoners there for a while, and I had a group in there that I took to the butcher shop in the mornings. We spent 8 hours in the butcher shop cutting the meat and getting everything ready. They killed them somewhere else, slaughtered them, and brought them in
Right.
there. And these boys, they'd cut them up get them ready for use in the mess hall, you know. And I'd take, I had three Germans and 2 Italians, I believe it was. That's 5, had 7 in all.
well,
Anyway, I'd take them boys in there, and they could really cut meat. I mean, they had some sharp knives, and they knew
Well.
what they was doing.
good workers, huh?
They done it. We'd get on in about 3 hours there, and we'd spend 8 hours in that shop. They wanted to stay there. They didn't like to go back to them prison cells.
Yeah,
And they really took care of me. They told me we had a general inspection there one time. A 3-star general was coming in to inspect, and they told me we had live hose there with steam. They told me, he said, you get out of here and let us have it. Boy, they cleaned that place up. He come in there with white gloves on and swabbed around on that. He never got he didn't get a thing. He didn't find a thing
Didn't
wrong.
find anything, huh?
And we passed it with flying colors.
So did they like your cooking,
Oh,
or did they liked it, huh?
I didn't cook there. I didn't
No,
cook.
I
That's
know,
all I
yeah.
done.
Oh, right, but
Oh,
earlier
yeah.
when you'd been
Oh,
cooking.
there was, Richard, they'd had a boy on there from Virginia that was first cook. I went on there I just didn't do anything for a while. And he went out of the kitchen out on the deck. He gave up cooking. He didn't like to cook. And he went a deckhand. So they put me on as second cook. And that bunch of men on that ship, they was really proud. They was tickled to death
Well, that's
when
good.
I took over and started cooking. Because that
Yeah.
other guy, he didn't know how to cook. He didn't know nothing about it. That's the reason he didn't like it. I like to cook.
That's good.
I really liked it.
What was your favorite thing to cook?
I like to bake it.
What do you remember cooking the most of on the ship?
Well, there was the biggest part of the time while I was in Portland there, I cooked at night. I got the meat ready and everything that could be got ready at night for them to cook the next morning while they was out. I had Ernestine and Wanda Sue there.
Oh,
And I'd come down there at night when they come in the evening on the ship, and I'd come down and get on and I'd do the baking, the pies and cakes and whatever was to be baked. We didn't have to bake bread. They had a Fort Williams, Maine there. They had a bakery there, and they brought the loaf of light bread. They brought it in there. But when the holidays and had rolls to make, hot rolls, I made the rolls. And I could make some rolls out of this world. And I'd make them up in 5-gallon.
Can you still make them?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
guess I can.
you're gonna
Not the
make
way
us
I did
hungry.
then.
I'm ready to try a roll right now.
We used a pound of yeast to make a batch of
Oh, wow.
rolls. You see, we had 100 and something men on the ship.
I've only seen a little packet of yeast in the store.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it just looks like a pound of soap or something like that. It's a square pound of yeast,
Mhm.
and I'd melt that in a gallon stainless steel pitcher. And that ship had a stainless steel counters all over, and tile floor and tile walls, and it had two ovens and 2 grills, deep fat fryer, potato peeler. Boy, I mean, it was out of this world. That galley was on there. I call it kitchen. I wasn't along with that old sea captain on there. He said, "This ain't no kitchen. This is a galley."
Right. Well, that's good. So you got out of service eventually, about 46, I presume.
Yeah,
then?
46 when I come
Yeah.
out.
And you moved back here?
Yeah, I come back here and went back to work at Martin's Tobacco Factory and worked
Well,
there some.
well.
As a matter of fact, I was working there, and the first 2 years after I was out of the service, I run a dock over on Old Benton Road there at Clark's River, on
Oh,
Clark's
yes, I
River.
remember that.
And the man down at Midwest come down there, the foreman down there, he came out there and fished in the afternoon a lot. We had a bunch of boats and minnows and everything. He'd come out there and fish. Well, then I was down there at Martin's one Saturday. We was putting up hogsheads across the road, across the street from Midwest there, and I saw Pappy Nace come in there and with a truck and start unloading empty cases. And we didn't have any water in that building there. We went across over there and in their garage and got a drink of water when we wanted it.
Uh-huh.
I told them, I said, "Boys, we stand there waiting for some hogsheads to come down." I said, "I'm going over there and get me a job." And I went over there and said, "Hello, Pappy," and I spoke to him, and he said, "Hi." And I said, "How about a job?" He said, "When you want to go to work?"
Oh,
I said, "When can I?" He said, "That is Saturday." He said, "Can you go to work Monday?" I said, "Yeah, I can go to work Monday." And he said, "Come down here Monday morning." Told me what time to come down. I went down there to work, went to work. Stayed there for 15 years.
well. Yeah, I knew you worked there at that delivering milk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
delivering milk. I
Right.
drove a milk truck 15
Right.
years.
Right. And then you moved away to
Yeah.
Illinois, or wasn't it?
I had worked there for 15 years, and we was getting a week for 5 years. a vacation. So I got a 3 weeks vacation, and I fooled around home and got things together there for a week, and then I had married Ernestine had died in the meantime, and I'd married Bernice Atchison, and she had a daughter that was married and was in Elgin, Illinois.
Okay.
So we was going up there and visit them. And we went up there, and I got in there. We left here after church Sunday night and drove that night and got in there the next morning early. I didn't do anything Monday, just laid around there. Tuesday I went out to the place there at Shapeproof to get an application for a job. And I was going to take it back there and fill it out, and they said, "We're hiring." Said, "Sit down over here and fill it out." I sat down there and filled it out, the application, turned it in. They called me in there and said, "Well, when you want to go to work?" I said, "When you want me to go?" They said, "Well, you can't go Wednesday because you've got to have a physical, and our doctor's not in the office on Wednesday." Said, "You come in, go." They give me his name and address where to go. Said, "You go get the physical and come in here Thursday at 1 o'clock and go to work." And I went up there for a week's vacation, stayed 12 years. I went there and went to work the third day after I got there.
I knew you'd been there for quite a while.
I
And
stayed
you
there.
retired from there.
Yeah.
Right. But what did they do there at that firm? I don't
We
didn't understand.
made everything. I made parts for these Sputniks that was running around, flying around here then. We made bolts and nuts and screws
see.
and everything for
Well,
cars, and
Well,
we made parts for electric can openers and everything like that.
okay. So Bernice lived, you and Bernice lived there for that
Yeah.
amount of time?
Yeah, we stayed there. Well, we had been, not all the time. We'd been here. I'd worked at Midwest a while,
Okay,
you know,
while-
before we went
that's
there.
right.
Went there on
Right.
vacation.
Right. When did you marry Bernice? What year do you remember? Would it have been about
Oh,
mid-60s or?
About
Or-
62, I think
Okay,
it was.
okay.
So about a couple of years after
Okay.
Ernestine died. She died
Yeah.
in 60, about 2 years
Right.
after that I married her.
Okay.
Bernice.
Okay. And then Bernice died what year? Do you remember?
81.
Well, okay.
We came back here from Elgin in 80. She come
I
down
see.
with cancer up there. I was working.
Right.
And the doctor gave her a year to live, and I was going to have to quit and take care of her there, so I just come on back home. I retired at 62 and come back here and retired. And doctor gave her a year to live. She lived a year and a month. That is in February, and she lived till the next March.
Well,
Not that March, but the next March a year.
right.
Uh-huh.
When you came back from up there, did you move in this house here at Grandpa died and you bought this house, or did you move somewhere else when you came back from Elgin for a while?
I moved in here.
Yeah, I thought you
See,
did.
Papa had
Yeah,
died.
I know that, and
I
I
had
thought
a
you
place
did, but I
over on
wasn't
the-
sure.
I had a place over on the old Benton Road when I went to Elgin. I had built it myself.
Mhm.
And I tried to rent it, you know, and it wasn't getting any rent out of it, and it was going down, and I was having trouble with it, so I just sold it. I give it away.
Mhm. Okay.
I had, at one time I had 5 bedrooms, and it burned, and then I just built it back with 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
And I sold that house for, about an acre of ground for $4,000.
Oh,
And I built the house myself, wired it and done the plumbing and everything. Just about done most of it by myself. I even hung sheetrock overhead by myself.
right. Well, that's good. Well, at what point did you meet Ruthie here?
Well, that's a long story too.
Well, we might as well let her tell it then, if it's that long. She's been off the hook for a long time here. We might as well get her on the hook, hadn't we?
Let
That's
her
right.
let her bring her up to
That's- we're
date,
gonna
and then
bring
we'll
her
bring
up to
us-
this
we'll
point. That's
both kind of agree on
That's-
what
okay,
happened there with
okay.
us.
Right. Well, that's good. So, Ruthie, you tell me a little bit about your childhood, your parents, and something
I
about your
had-
siblings.
I had 3 sisters and a brother.
Okay, now look at
They were
Don.
all
Look
they
at-
were all all of them older except the brother. He was the baby of the family, and he was my pet. I adored him. I love my sisters, but my little brother is very special.
How close was he in age to you?
He was 5 years younger,
Okay.
and right now he's still very special to me. I had a very happy childhood. I had very strict parents, But I had a wonderful childhood. I wouldn't trade childhoods with anybody. I had great childhood. We played together. We fought together, and sometimes we'd fight each other, and sometimes we'd fight somebody else. But I was the one that Mom always cautioned the other ones to watch out for me because I like to start fights. I still like to a little bit.
Well, that's interesting. Now, what were your parents' names?
My mother was Martha Brown Barger, and my dad was Frank. No, my mother was Bertha. Her mother was Martha.
Okay.
My mother was Bertha Brown Barger. My dad was Frank Barger. And my dad had been married before, and he had several children, and they were nearly the same age as my mother. There was 20 years difference between my mother and dad. But they had a special relationship because I know every married couple has their arguments, but I never, ever heard my mom and dad have an argument in my life, and none of the rest of the family did.
Well,
It was wonderful. My mother was a Christian. My dad was just a really good man until he was elderly, and then he was saved at like about 70 years old before my dad was saved. But he was the most wonderful man and a wonderful father. He wasn't strict like my mother was. My mother was the one that wielded the switch and everything when we needed
kept
it.
you guys straight, huh?
Yeah.
At that point, what was your dad doing? How did you have good income? Were you considered yourself pretty well set?
Dad was a
financially?
grader, and he worked for the city of Metropolis, and he was a grader. I was born and raised in Metropolis,
Okay,
Illinois.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
And so
Right.
he drove a road grader. Back then, all the streets were gravelled
Gravel,
about
right.
in Metropolis, and he drove a road grader. We were, I guess you would consider us poor people, but we never knew it. We always had what everybody else had, and we had the necessities plus a lot of the luxuries.
Yeah.
And my grandmother lived with us.
I think that Uncle Lee Ray and all of his family could say the same thing, that they had plenty. They didn't have a lot of money probably, but they had plenty to eat and sufficient.
There was a lot of love in my family, and I know there was in his because I've seen his family in action.
Yeah.
But now Lee and I met. I was a widow for 9 years. And I did not want a man, no way. In this world did I want a man. I had had a happy marriage, and I said, no, I do not want any man. There's not one around that I would have.
Well.
And this friend of mine that went to church with me, she started praying that I would find somebody that I wanted to go with. And she specified go with, but she didn't specify it to the Lord. And so anyhow, she wanted me to go to a gospel singing. And so at that gospel singing, I met Lee. And
You remember the gospel singing?
it was over at the mall that they just tore down,
Oh.
where they're building the Super Walmart.
Yeah.
It was at that mall, the off-price mall they called it.
Yeah.
And the stores were sponsoring a gospel sing. And so we had, it was like an intermission, and he spoke to me, and we said a few words. Well, during the time, the one that was the sort of master of ceremonies, well, he asked, he said, ask them all to trade with the ones that were sponsoring the
Right.
singing. And so instead of saying Payless Drugstore, he said Payless Shoe Store. Well, Lee afterwards, was sitting in the back of me, and afterwards he leaned over, he said, well, are you going to go buy you some new shoes? I said, yeah, I thought I'd go buy a couple of pair. And we just laughed about it, and then he came over after I had two friends that was with me, and he asked me, said, I'd like to get better acquainted with you. And that sounded all right to me. And like I said, I wasn't even interested in meeting a man, but I was interested in meeting him. I put it that way, because I really didn't want anybody until I met him. And that was so funny. So my friend and I did all of our walking, and we went to church together, we went to singings together, and I really was with her a lot. And so after we said we were going to get married, well, she said, Ruthie, I prayed for. She had told me after we had started going together that I've been praying for you to find somebody you wanted to go with, and so she told me, said, I prayed for you to find somebody to go with, not to marry. And she said, next time I'm gonna specify to God, I want you to, if you do marry, I want you to stay in Metropolis.
Oh.
So you lived in Metropolis then,
Right, home of Superman.
Yeah, that's right.
and now they have a Superman there.
They have Superman days in June every year.
And that's when we got married.
And so our first date was June the 11th of 92. And so June the 11th of 93, that's when we decided to get married on the anniversary of
Oh,
our
I
first
see.
date.
Well, huh.
So
Well, that's interesting.
Lee has been such a blessing to me because of his Christian. He has a close walk with the Lord, and he's been a blessing to me, and his family has been a blessing to me. Whenever I was meeting whenever I went to that first, they had this reunion over at Randall and Martha's,
Right.
and he wanted me to go, and I thought, good grief, I don't want to go to that. But he insisted on it. So I go to the beauty shop, and I said, now, I want my hair colored. I want it blonde. Pat, don't make it pink. And I went, whenever I met most of his family, I went with pink hair. It was not blonde, it was pink. And I was embarrassed, but he didn't act like he noticed it.
Just what you didn't need.
What
or
I
want,
didn't
just
need.
what you got, huh?
Here I was trying to impress all the Ramages, and I know behind their back, behind my back, they were saying, oh my goodness, not that. But they treat me wonderful. And Newman, the thing that I remember most about Newman is after we said I do, he said, okay, you want it, now you got it. What are you going to do with it?
Who came to the wedding? Did you have a kind
We-
of a ceremony, invite the family, or did
We-
you just have a very small?
We had a small wedding at my church.
Uh-huh.
I wanted this ceremony. I wanted it to be from my pastor, and we had actually it was supposed to be all of his brothers and sisters and all of mine and a few of my very closest friends and his
Well.
two best friends. And as it turned out, my family was a little disturbed because I didn't invite the nieces and nephews, and I had told them I couldn't invite all of Lee's nieces and nephews, so I wasn't going to
Right.
invite all of mine, and they were a little disturbed about it. So, I mean, it's all settled now, but at one time they were a little hurt.
Well,
But I didn't want to show any difference between my nieces and nephews than I did his.
yeah, that's good.
And his daughter stood up with me, and his son stood up with him as his best man.
Your brother give away.
And my little brother gave me away.
Well,
Whenever I asked my little brother if he'd give me away, he said, that's what I want to do all of my life.
Now, you'd gone to that church for a long time that
Yes,
you were
uh-huh.
married in? Is that
Uh-huh.
where you were saved? And,
No,
gone
I
for a
was
long
saved
time?
at another church where my mother and dad went.
I see.
I was saved, about 42, 43 years ago. And I have never been out of church. I have been blessed. I've never been out of church since I was saved, where a lot of people, they kind of stray. Not that I'm that good a person, but I've never strayed too far from the Lord. He gets me back. But I've never been out of church since I've been a Christian.
Well,
And I'm not bragging on myself. I'm bragging on the Lord.
yeah, that's good. Well, now, you had gone to church all your life up between, they called it between the rivers, didn't they?
Yeah.
When you were
Yeah,
growing
right,
up.
right.
Did you accept the Lord up there at one of those camp meetings that you talked about, or churches, or?
You know where Star Camp is up there?
Yeah,
That's where I
I
was
see.
saved at.
I see.
It was
Okay.
they had a shed there at that time, and the Nazarene preacher would come there in the summertime and hold a 2 and sometimes 3 or 4 week service.
Well,
And I was saved there at that place. That's
Well,
where I was saved.
well, early on?
Early, I was 13
teens,
years old.
Well, that's good. Yeah. Well, now, what are your plans? What are you thinking? You're going to stay here? You're going to move to Florida? You're going to go to tour the world? Or what's next? Have you been talking and planning and got anything made yet up, or just up in the air?
All we want to do now is just continue on this house, remodeling and redoing this house.
One
and
day at a time.
Really?
That's good. Well, Doug used to sing that,
That's
didn't
for.
he? Yeah, Doug used to sing that song.
Oh boy, did he!
Yeah.
I'll never forget when we come out in Newman and Helen one time, and Donnie sang, him and Doug sang, and Doug played the piano, and they
Right.
sang that.
Right.
That's when
That's
it was
right.
new, you know, it
That's
first
right.
come out. And
Yeah. One day at a time,
one
sweet
day
Jesus.
at a time. I'll never forget them singing that song.
Yeah, Don used to sing that. He'd get those high notes back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, too bad we don't have a tape of that, Don. But that's that's good. Well, if you any comments further that you want to make, any stories to tell, anything to add? Because
There's
that-
one thing I'd like
fine.
to say.
Don't tell me.
That
tell
I
him.
want, okay, there's one thing that I wanted to say that impressed me with Lee and I. We were over at Long John Silver's one day, and there was a man over there, and he said, "See that man over there?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "I led him to the Lord in 1953." And that impressed me so much that he could remember leading that man to the Lord and
Oh,
the
yeah.
year and everything. And he
Right.
took me by and introduced me. And I said, "Well, you know, I think it's so wonderful that anybody can lead somebody to the Lord so easily." And I think he has done that really, you know, the way he acts. He'll talk to you about the Lord like he is his best friend. And I don't know, he's told me several people that he has led to the Lord.
That's good. That's a good story. Good comment. Very good.
Well, I've got Danny out here, Fremont. He's got a place out there with Acre Lake. Nice place. Then Wanda Sue, I'm 721 Oaks Road, and Wanda Sue is 710 Oaks Road. So we're in hauling distance of each other.
Good.
And Glenda, she's out in California. She's straight off.
Yeah, you'd have to holler real loud to
Yeah.
catch her, huh? Well, you know yourself. You have to do what you feel you have to
Yeah.
do. So can't
Well, I
fault them
was-
for that.
Could
I was
I add
glad-
one thing, though,
Sure.
before, I don't mean to interrupt him, but I do want to say that as far as stepchildren, I call them mine.
Own children.
And I don't have children, and those kids have been just wonderful to me. All three of them. I couldn't, if I took a catalog and ordered stepchildren, I couldn't have done better. They're wonderful.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's good. Now, were you going to finish up on something? We're about
Well, I
ready to wrap
started to
it up
say
here.
Glenda went off out in California, but I was kind of glad it happened because she had a pretty rough life there in Elgin with the crowd she was with and all while she was growing up, finishing growing up, and
Uh-huh.
and two marriages there, and one of them had been his own son murdered him and would have got her if she hadn't been there. She had left not too long before that and wasn't living with him, and he
Well.
probably would have killed her too if he had been there at the time. They cut him all to pieces with machetes, old army knives, you know. So Glenda's better off if she got away from Elgin
Right.
because
She's
She's
that
got a
got
good
away
husband now.
from
Well.
that stuff, all that.
Well, now, how many grandchildren do you have now?
5.
5 grandchildren.
Uh-huh.
No great grandchildren.
Oh,
Yeah,
Josh.
Tina.
Oh,
Wanda Sue's daughter
that's right.
has got a child.
Okay.
Got Joshua.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joshua,
Yeah.
he lives down here on the Husband Road, right at the end of Estes Lane there
Okay.
on Husband Road, a
Okay.
mile from me.
Well,
And there's 4 of us boys, and up until Bob moved to Florida, we was all 4 in 5 mile of each other.
right. Right.
So we've had a pretty close family. I mean, pretty good, pretty
Uh-huh.
good living.
Uh-huh.
I haven't got any regrets in my life.
Well, that's good. That's good that you can look back and be pleased. And I'm sure that we all trust that we can say that. Okay, I think we've about wrapped it up. So thank you very much for bearing with us
Okay.
and for helping out, filling up another tape with Ramage archive material.
And Don, he's the producer.
He's the producer.
Yeah,
That's right.
he's standing over there smiling all over.
If there's any money to be made from that, he's probably going to get it.
Yeah, he's due it.
Yeah, he's
worked
due
here
it.
for an hour to get
Do
set
all
up
this.
here to do this job.
With 1 foot.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Uncle Lee.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate it.